He almost got died. I had to push him out of the way, and a truck was to the right or right where he was standing. So if I
Yeah.
wouldn't have,
Why do you think they singled you out of the bunch?
at the time, I was really mad, and I didn't want to forgive them for what they did. Bang! And kicked the dog. And I went, "What did you just do? Do not use my music."
I mean, what was the experience like joining that band and becoming the spokesman and the lead guitarist? And I mean, was that surreal for you at all? Or
Well, again, it's kind of like I said, it seemed like this was what my destiny was. And when it came time for us to do our first concert, we played at a high school, or maybe it was a junior high school Lars might have gone to. I know he went to it, but I can't remember if it was elementary or junior or high school, whatever. And from that point on, it was just clear that whenever there was any kind of altercation that was going down, I would be the one that would take care of it. James was very peaceful, and Lars, he was a little bit of a devil. He liked to have fun, but yeah, if there was ever any stuff going down, I had to take care of it. When we went up to San Francisco and did our first couple shows up there at a place called the Stone, I was the one who had to go and collect the money. And there's a million ways to embezzle or to be corrupt when it comes down to running a club or bar. When it involves a band getting paid, they can say all kinds of stuff. And if you don't know, you don't know. And most kids my age at that time don't know. And they try and get money, and they'll say, "Well, you sold 200 tickets and you have a bar tab here, and so we're going to give you $150." And you know that they made a killing on their booze. You know that they made money on the food and snacks that they have there and the ticket prices. Plus they take a giant whack of your merchandise. And that was my gig. I would go do that. When we decided we were going to move out to New York, that was because Lars had found somebody he wanted to manage us, this guy Johnny Zazula, who had Megaforce Records. And he heard our demo tape, the No Life Till Leather demo tape, and he lost his mind, just like everybody else in the world. And they wanted to get the band to come out and record a record. And while we were on the way out there, we got in a car crash. We were driving through the snow. None of us had to drive through snow except for Lars because he's from Denmark. And I'm driving this Ryder truck. It's a 24-foot truck, and it had a tow bar, and it had James's pickup on the back. So when we were driving, we hit black ice, and the whole thing spun around while I was driving. And I managed to keep it upright in the middle of the freeway, but the truck stopped. And oncoming traffic was coming towards us, and the events that happened at that location, the guy that had produced, I think he produced the first record, his name's Mark Whitaker. He was the guy that was doing our sound and stuff. He almost got died. I had to push him out of the way, and a truck was to the right or right where he was standing. So if I wouldn't have seen that truck coming and saved his life, he'd be dead right now. And when we went to the U-Haul place to get our truck replaced and move all of our gear into the new truck, James and Lars had made a decision to replace me because they tried to pin that driving thing on me as the last straw. We all drank. That's why they called it Alcoholica. I mean, they didn't call it Dave Alcoholica. We all drank. And they continued to drink like that even after I was gone. But that was I think, the beginning of the end. And when we got out to New York, I had a reel of tape. It was a quarter-inch tape. It had probably 2 days worth of guitar riffs on it, just me playing and playing and playing. And we took that tape player and the reel of tape with us out to New York. And when we did 2 shows out there, and after those 2 shows, they woke me up one morning and said, "Look, you're out of the band." And I said, "What are you talking about? You're out of the band." I said, "No warning? No second chance? You're not going to give me a warning? You're just going to kick me out?" And I thought that was unfair. and it showed a grotesque amount of a grotesque lack of character. And so that it pissed me off and was a huge part of the fuel. But at the time, I was really mad, and I didn't want to forgive them for what they did. And I told them when I left, do not use my music. And of course, they used it. They Ride the Lightning I wrote, Call of Cthulhu I wrote. Let's see what else. There's Phantom Lord, Metal Militia, Jump in the Fire, The Four Horsemen.
Jeez.
And I wrote a bunch of Leper Messiah too. They didn't give me credit on that. You listen to the riffs, you know they're my riffs. It's like, boing. You think I'm going to all of a sudden hear my riff and say that's not me? So,
Damn.
yeah, I wrote a lot of their music that made them. And all the solos on that first record were mine. The best Kirk could try and copy them.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, why do you, if everybody was drinking that much, were there drugs involved too?
I like to smoke pot, but there were no drugs.
Why do you think they singled you out of the bunch?
Because when I got drunk, I got violent. James and I had gone out to a club one time, and it was the old Mabuhay. It was across the street from the Stone, and we were out front, and some guy came out of the alleyway, and he said, "There's a guy beating some girl up in the alleyway." And of course, I, being the champion for justice, did not want to hear that and not do anything. So I went down the alleyway with James. And of course, James, not being a fighter, started yelling out, "Kill him, kill him, kill him." And the guy comes out from behind a van, and he was much bigger than James. And he said, "Who's going to kill me?" And James points to me. So I immediately grabbed the guy and put him down in a submission and started rabbit punching him until he stopped moving. And then we ran out of the alleyway and we stood out front until the paramedics came. And that was it. So I imagine he saw that and he figured, I don't want to be part of this. Dave's already beat me up back down in Los Angeles, and he's just too violent.
Damn.
Because James did get a punch in the mouth from me. He kicked my puppy.
He kicked your puppy?
Yeah, I was selling pot for a living, as you know. So one time I did a concert and people knew I was on stage, so they just jimmied the window. There's nobody there. They took all my pot, and I was pissed. So I got 2 dogs. My nephew took one, and I took the other one. And I had taken her up with me to rehearsal, and she was playing, and she's looking up at me. I'm standing over here. Ron McGovey's got this really nice GTO, and she leans up against the car and puts her paws on the front quarter panel, and he goes, bang, and kicked the dog. And I went, "What did you just do? What did you just do?" And it went from the front yard into the house, and there's still stuff being said. And I said, you better shut up or I'm going to punch you in the mouth. And then Ron McGovney says, "If you hit him, you're going to have to hit me first." And I said, "You stay out of it." And then James said the same thing. "If you hit him, you're going to have to hit me first." And I said, "Okay, you win." And bang, I hit James in the mouth. And then I hip tossed Ron into his Intellivision setup. And that was it. 2 strikes, and it was over. And Lars was pulling his hair, going, "I don't want it to end this way." And I thought, you know what? I've already told you, it's either me or James. And we did that a bunch of times because James was doing stupid stuff. And I told James the same thing. I said, "Man, it's either me or Lars, because Lars sucks."
Damn.
And I got the axe in the end, so it's good. Fine.
What did you do after you got axed?
I went home, and I contacted a friend of mine, and I said I quit. She said, "No, you didn't. You got fired." And I said, "Yeah, I got fired. I quit. I got fired. Whatever. I'm back home." Wrong word. Not changing the outcome. And I made sure not to ever say that I quit, because I wanted people to know that I was unfairly dismissed and that I didn't give a shit.
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.